Hello and welcome to the 2025 Cook Family Gathering, our virtual gathering. My name is Marcia Marshall. I'm the PWC Board President, and I'm happy to welcome you to our presentations today. Before we get started on our presentations, I want to do some housekeeping work and let you know a little bit about the organization and how you can find us if you haven't already. We have a newsletter that we send out a few times a year via email. And if you are not getting this newsletter in your email, please send us your email. The chat is open right now. You could type it in the chat and we'd be happy to put you on our emailing list. If you think it might be heading to your junk folder, take a look for something that comes from cookfamilynewsletter@gmail.com. We have a website, cookfamily.org. You can find many things about us there, and we're going to be revamping it to reorganize it a little bit, but keep an eye on our website. We have social media sites on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us by searching for Cook Family Org or Phineas Walcott Cook Family Organization. Watch our social media sites for announcements and for upcoming events, our book club reminders of what we're reading, and then we also serialize Phineas's memoirs in posts every few days on those sites. So follow those sites to keep up with that information. We also have a YouTube channel that you're watching this on, so I assume you found it, where we have talks from our past gatherings that you can watch. Our book club meetings are taped if you want to watch that discussion. And we have videos that have been made about our ancestors' stories, so you can look for those on our YouTube channel. Again, you can find our channel by searching for Phineas Walcott Cook Family Organization or Cook Family Org. We have a book club, like I mentioned, that we are reading a chapter or two of the Legacy of Faith book. It meets 2 months on and then 1 month off. Our next one will be the first Saturday in September. And watch our social media sites to know what pages we're reading. And the link is always the same if you need that link. I can put it in the chat here for you, and or you can message us for the link. And it's at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, the first Saturday of the months that we do it. September, then we'll be off October. We'll have it November and December. We have several books for sale on Amazon.com. I'll put up a few pictures here of some of our books that you can search for there. The Legacy of Faith book is available about Phineas Walcott Cook and his memoirs. We have a book about our first Cook ancestor that came from England, Henry Cook, that details what we know about him and what we want to know about him. We have a book recently published that we'll be talking about today about Eliza Cook and her diaries. We have a book about Phineas founding Goshen. And we have a children's book, the first of we hope will be many. This one's called Hometown Heroes Battling the Bear. And then we have our newest publication, Bryson Cook's book about Daniel Cook in the Revolutionary War. He'll be talking about that today, and you can purchase that book on Amazon. Eventually, we hope to get all of these up on our website as well, but they're not there quite yet, except the Legacy of Faith book is there. We need volunteers. We are hoping that you will want to get involved in our organization. We need a family tree supervisor to keep an eye on some things in FamilySearch's family tree. If you're interested in helping with the DNA research, we can always use researchers. We need some people to do a very basic amount of research to help we have a huge list of Cook ancestors and descendants' names that could have temple work done if we can process them through FamilySearch. We can teach you how to do this very easy level of name processing and then put the names that we get into our family groups on FamilySearch. So we could really use some people to help with that. If you're interested, please contact us and we will get you the information you need. If you'd like to be involved with our board, we welcome you. We have some people working on writing new books, like children's books. If that interests you, contact us. So there's lots of ways you can get involved. So thank you for being here today. We have 4 presentations and a service project that we're going to show you today. Our first presentation is by Bryson Cook, and he will be talking about places that Daniel Cook lived and Daniel on down to Phineas Cook lived in Connecticut, and also new information that we've learned he has researched about Daniel Cook's involvement in the Revolutionary War. This is brand new information, and we're excited to bring it to you. Then I will talk about our recent publication, Eliza Cook's Diaries, and Becca Groberg and Alison Marshall will also talk about their involvement publishing that book. Then I will show you a service project that you all can do at home on your own time to help the FamilySearch family tree beef it up with Cook names. This project is not specific to our Cook family. It is just Cook names in general, but some of our people are bound to be among there. So we're going to do a very general project to beef up the tree with Cook names, and I will detail that for you. So thank you for gathering with us. Please watch our YouTube channels where we will post these presentations after they are done today, so you can watch them or refer your family to them. And you'll be able to see everything that we show today will be viewable on our YouTube channel. So right now, you cannot talk live with us. These presentations have been pre-recorded, but if you'd like to chat, the chat is live right now, and you're welcome to do that. So our first presentation is from Bryson Cook.
This video explores the story of the Cook family in Goshen, Connecticut across 5 generations. Using maps, research, and on-site footage, we revisit where they lived. Though their homes are no longer standing, the land still holds their memory. We'll learn who they were and what we've recently uncovered about their lives. The Cook family migration to Goshen, Connecticut began with our immigrant ancestor, Henry Cook, who was an original proprietor of Salem in Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1638. His son, Samuel Cook, who was born in Salem in 1641, moved to the New Haven Colony in 1660 and married Hope Parker. 9 years later, he settled Wallingford, Connecticut, as a founder and proprietor. His son, Joseph Cook, was born in Wallingford, where he married Eleanor Johnson. She was also a third-generation American whose Dutch ancestors founded New Amsterdam, or what is now called New York City. He settled Goshen as a town founder and proprietor in 1739. Goshen would become the family seat for about 100 years, with 5 generations of the family claiming it their home. With the exception of his oldest son, Benjamin, his entire family moved to Goshen. They acquired significant land holdings that would be developed into prosperous farms. The town history remembers Joseph as a man of prominence in the development of the community. Proprietors would draw lots for certain parcels of land in the new town. Subsequently, Joseph drew lots that allowed him to break out farmland just south and west of Dog Pond on Town Hill. He lived on the east side of Town Hill Road, south of Dog Pond. His neighbor, Joseph Curtis, sold his home to Daniel Cook Sr. in 1750. This home was situated about 150 yards north of his father's home on the west side of the road. Daniel Cook Jr. was born in this home. So I'm now walking eastward on Dog Pond Road. Daniel Cook Sr., who was born in Wallingford and living in Wallingford when he met and married Elizabeth Pond. Both the Cooks and the Pond families were the bluest of blue Connecticut Yankees. They came from deep Puritan roots. The Pawns were thought to be related to John Winthrop. New Haven Puritans were considered the purest of Puritans. The colony was more theocratic than the Connecticut colony. Their laws and governance were more biblical. Recently we learned that Elizabeth Pond was an orphan before she turned 1 year old. She was the daughter of a wealthy family, unfortunately afflicted with high mortality rates. By the age of 25 years old, as a married woman, she had lost 3 of her brothers, including Phineas Pond. Her husband, Daniel Cook, was appointed the guardian for one of his sons, Phineas Pond Jr. When Phineas Pond Jr. was 19 years old, he was fighting in the French and Indian War, and he was killed. Daniel Cook named a son Daniel Cook Jr., who in turn named his son Phineas, and Phineas then named a son Phineas Wolcott Cook. Perhaps there's a connection to the Phineas Pond family. So I'm standing on what would be the northeast corner of the property acquired by Daniel Cook when he followed his father to Goshen in 1750. Daniel's home was located on Town Hill Road, and from Town Hill Road the property went west and south, and where he acquired prime farmland for he and his family. Daniel had followed his father to Goshen, and over time I think he acquired somewhere around 300 acres of prime farmland. Almost as soon as he arrived, he became a leading man in the town. At the time, his fellow freemen elected him to serve on the school board, as a surveyor of roads, as a grand juryman, as a town selectman, similar to being a town councilor in our towns. He was the founder of the Goshen Library, and most importantly, he became a militia captain. He was elected by the men of the Goshen Militia Company, and he was commissioned by the Colony Assembly around 1772. He held this position prior to the Revolutionary War, when he was replaced, but he would retain the title of captain for the rest of his life. In October of 1776, the Connecticut State Assembly required all freemen of the towns to sign and take the oath of allegiance. He took the oath on November the 7th of 1777 and is listed in the town records as Captain Cook, along with his sons Amasa and Philip. Swearing the oath was considered by the king to be an act of rebellion and treason, punishable by hanging. By taking the oath, Daniel and his sons were putting their lives at risk. You, Captain Daniel Cook, do swear by the ever-living God that you will truly and faithfully adhere to and maintain the government established in this state under the authority of the people, agreeable to the laws enforced within the state, and that you believe in your conscience that the King of Great Britain hath not, nor of right ought to have, any authority or dominion in or over this state, and that you do not hold yourself bound to yield any allegiance or obedience to him within the same, and that you will, to the utmost of your power, maintain and defend the freedom, independence, and privileges of this state against all open enemies or traitorous conspiracies whatsoever, so help you God. We know that Daniel Cook took the oath of allegiance in November of 1777. His health began to fail shortly thereafter, and he wrote his will on the 30th of December, 1777. He died shortly thereafter, when his wife was appointed for the guardian of Daniel Jr. on January the 13th, 1778. Daniel Cook Jr. lived with his mother until the end of the Revolutionary War. Following the Revolutionary War, Daniel Cook Jr. sold his inherited interest in the Town Hill home where he was born. He married Elizabeth Porter. Her father's family settled Hartford and Farmington, Connecticut. Her mother's family were also early settlers in New Haven. They would relocate to his farm and home in southwest Goshen. He inherited some land and purchased additional land, ending up with 2 farms there. He was the petitioner to form the Milton Ecclesiastical Society, a community comprised of neighbors living in southwest Goshen, southeast Cornwall, northeast Warren, and northwest Litchfield. He served on the board of the Milton School District. His home was in southwest Goshen, 3 miles from Milton Center. He had a small family, and because the war broke his health, he died when he was 48 years old. He is buried in Milton. Every year, an American flag is placed on his grave on the 4th of July, and he is recognized as a war hero. So I'm standing in the Milton Cemetery located in the northwest corner of Litchfield, Connecticut. Several members of the Cook family are buried here. I'll draw your attention first to the headstone of Jonathan Churchill. He was the father of Irene Churchill, who married Phineas Cook. He was a Revolutionary War veteran. Phineas's oldest daughter, Betsy, is buried here. We're probably most familiar with the headstone of Captain Daniel Cook. During the war, Captain Daniel Cook Jr. served in the militia as a Minuteman, and he fought in the Battle of New York, and possibly at the Battle of Saratoga under the command of General Oliver Wolcott. He is known to have served in Colonel Bazaleel Beebe's regiment at West Point and Stanford when they were called into action when Benedict Arnold betrayed his country. He was guarding New Haven when Cornwallis surrendered to George Washington. He shot a redcoat, was wounded in a skirmish during the war. He narrowly escaped capture by the British at New Haven, and following the war, he would later serve in the militia as an ensign, as a lieutenant, and as captain of the 16th Company of the 17th Regiment, Connecticut State Militia. He owned land in Milton and Cornwall, but was primarily centered in southwest Goshen. Phineas Cook was born in Daniel Jr.'s home in southwest Goshen. When his father died, Amasa inherited the home, and Phineas inherited the new farm on Cornwall Road, less than a mile to the south. All of his children were born on this farm. His brother Amasa was killed in a farm accident and died in debt. As a result, Phineas struggled to pay the debts and ultimately had to sell both farms. His father-in-law, Jonathan Churchill, lived with him in his old age, and in return, he retired some of the outstanding debt. Jonathan, a Revolutionary War veteran, is also buried in Milton near the grave of Daniel Cook Jr. Phineas would end up selling the farm to his uncle, Moses Cook, in 1836 before moving to Kalamazoo, Michigan. Moses had a son named George, about 6 years younger than Phineas. We think that George was living in Daniel Cook's home, Daniel Cook Jr.'s home, and it is the George identified on the Clark's map of Litchfield County in the 1850s. Phineas was resilient and resourceful and successfully transitioned the family to Michigan. His daughter Eliza joined the church and introduced the gospel to her brother Phineas Wolcott Cook. She moved west with her brother and with the saints, while her husband Solomon Hall returned to Milton, where he died, and he is also buried in the Milton Cemetery. So I'm standing at Hart Pond in southwest Goshen. Phineas Woolcock Cook was born and raised in the southwest part of Goshen. He recorded fond memories of his childhood in his journal. The pond mentioned in his journal where he fished in the winter is most likely Hart Pond, that's right behind me, less than a mile from where he lived. In 1836, he moved with his family to Michigan, where he joined the church. He would later cross the plains with Brigham Young. As a pioneer, he settled Goshen, Utah, and named the town after his good old Connecticut home. He later moved to Bear Lake as a pioneer and removed to Afton, Wyoming, where he died. He is the father of a posterity currently estimated to number 120,000 descendants. I hope you find this video of interest, and I hope you find it inspirational relative to learning something about our ancestors who lived here in Goshen. As we reflect upon our heritage and the choices that our Cook ancestors made, I hope that we feel blessed and consider ourselves fortunate. To give you just another idea or some perspective as to some of the decisions our ancestors had to make that really put them on the right side of history, let me just share some interesting little facts that you might find of interest. At the time Henry Cook migrated to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Salem, Massachusetts, only 25% of the world population were considered Christian. Of Christians, only 25% were Anglicans, or members of the Church of England. Of that group, only 5% were considered Puritans. And of those, only 20,000 Puritans came to America between 1630 and 1640. And so you see that decision matrix that actually filters down to a very small group of a few people who literally changed the world. If you consider the events of 1776, the Revolutionary War, the War for Independence, the founding of a new nation, something different in the history of the world, consider this: only 45% of the American population actually supported independence from Great Britain. And of those, only 8% actually fought in the war. And if you consider the Cook family in Goshen, literally every male and every male that the females married that were descendants of Joseph Cook at that age were involved in that conflict. There wasn't one that didn't answer the call and respond to the alarm to defend their country. If you consider the 1845, at the time that Phineas Woolcock Cook joined the church, only a quarter of 1% of the population of the United States were members of the church. Very, very small group of people. In the year 2025, about 4% of the world population today are United States citizens. And of those people who live in the United States, only 2% are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There are 120,000 descendants of Phineas Woolcock Cook, and you might find this of interest. Only 1.5% of bread is composed of salt. You are the salt of the earth. It's important that we don't lose our savor. It's important that we make decisions that will put us on the right side of history and that we'll be a blessing to our own posterity.
Hi, my name is Becca Groberg, and I was involved in the publication of Eliza's journal from the last 2 years of her life. And I just wanted to tell you my story about how I got involved and my role in it. So at the beginning of 2024, I started wanting to learn more about our Cook ancestors, and I found this PDF attached to Eliza, opened it up and just started reading her day-to-day account of her life, and I got so hooked. Like, I binged it like it was the Gilmore Girls. Like, I stay up late at night just wanting to read everything. Anyway, it was so fun to hear about her just day-to-day experiences were really interesting to me, about the crops and the weather, and then how the bell at the church didn't work, and so nobody came to relief site because nobody knew what time to come. Anyway, I just found all these details so fun. And then even the bigger stories that were going on of the concern she had for her son who had mental health challenges, and her concern for another son who broke his arm, and how is he going to run the farm, and for the grandkids and their health. And anyway, it was just so it sucked me in. And but what I think I loved most was seeing her priorities. She wrote about her faith and her commitment to it, and her family, and her concern and love for them, and then her community and her country. And those resonated with me very deeply because they're mine. And so it felt like no time elapsed between her life and mine, and I could walk with her and have her in my mind during the day. And her sacrifice that she had given for her family meant so much to me, because it had changed my life and what I'm able to do today, and to have all the benefits that I do. Because of my special experience reading it, I really wanted to give it to my dad, but it didn't seem like I could just print off this PDF and hand it to him and that it would feel like a gift. Anyway, so I wanted to make it into something that I could give to him at Christmas time. And so I talked to Marcia about it and said, this is something I would like to do. Would the organization be interested? And what do you think? And she had just visions of beauty that I did not anticipate. She's like, well, what if we re-edit it to modernize the grammar and the capitalization so that's really readable? And what if we add in information about the people and things that don't make sense? And so Marcia and Alison did so much work to make this something beyond what I had anticipated. And it really is so readable. The footnotes and the things, the words that get defined. Anyway, they did a beautiful job getting that research done. My job was to compile it and to get it into book format, and then to add in the supplemental information at the end, which is pedigree charts and pictures and maps and timelines, just so people have things to reference as they go, what is this family and who were all her kids? Because she had 16 kids. Like, it's a lot of kids to keep track of for us today, let alone her in her time. Anyway, the bell. There's a picture of the bell even in here we included, because I just found that story so fun. Anyway, but then I was able to present this much nicer version of what I had thought about to my dad for Christmas. And that was really sweet too, because he cried, and that was, to watch your dad cry is always a very special experience, because it doesn't happen very often, and that was fun. Anyway, and so I was so grateful to be a part of it, because it really was a special read for me, and then to be able to share it in a much nicer format. And anyway, I hope you as well read it. It was so good. Okay, enjoy.
Hi, my name is Alison Marshall. I'm a member of the Phineas Walcott Cook family organization. I spent some time working on the Journal of Eliza with Becca Groberg and my mother, Marcia Marshall. And I wanted to talk about the work we did and the process of it and what I learned from that. So one of my jobs was help proofreading the journal material and research, which was a lot of fun. So whenever in the journal, Eliza would mention a person, sometimes a place or an event, I would try to find out more about it. So she would take a name, sometimes it'd be a family or ward members, and I would try to find their records, find their birthday, where they lived at that time, anything to identify the person, to know who they are. And we added this information to the book, and with the information we read from the journals, I was able to find the person in FamilySearch, and I can identify them, and we and future readers can know who Eliza was talking about. So while working on this project, I was able to see Eliza's life and kind of compare it to what I had known about pioneer life. So the idea of the reality of pioneer life and hardships, what I really understood was just the trek, the kind of the months of grueling pain it took to, go to Salt Lake. But from there, what happened? How did people live? They had to build a life basically from scratch, and a lot of that was talked about in her journals, as this was a part of her life. And what was also something that I learned, especially from this book, was the realities of polygamy for Eliza, and especially interesting considering how her journal is written so many years after she had kids, and she wasn't living with her husband at the time, but she had talked a lot about her kids, about her life, and about her faith especially. So because of her journal and the work that she put into it, I feel that I found a great value in journaling myself for my posterity and for me reading it, and I can understand the value of it to a higher level. So I found it especially inspiring how she cherished her life and her family and her friends, and she put a great deal of work into her callings and the opportunities she had, and how she reflected on those, especially later in her life. And I got to learn how she lived for just a few years before she passed away, and what she considered most important and most evident. So Eliza Howland Cook lived a life of hard work, faith, love, and friendship, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had to work on the publication of her journal, and I hope you all will enjoy reading it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcia Marshall, and I'm going to talk today about my experience learning about Eliza Howland Cook from her diaries, which we published recently. We published the writings that she did in the last 2 years of her life, from 1894 to 1896. And it was already transcribed and typed out, so we checked it against the original, and then we did some research to identify the people that she named and some of the words and things that she talked about, put those in footnotes to help it be more understandable. The published diary also has some photos and things at the back to help contextualize the diary. So I want to tell you a little about what I learned about Eliza from her diaries. Eliza Howland was born in New York in 1823, and she moved with her family to Kalamazoo County, Michigan when she was a teenager. She met Phineas Walcott Cook when she was 15 years old, when Phineas was hired to work for her father. They were married in 1840 when she was 16 and he was 20. Phineas's memoirs recount a bit about their courtship. He said that he would walk the 3.5 miles to visit Eliza on Sundays, spend the day with her, go to meeting with her in the evening. Church meetings were often in the evenings back then. And since it wasn't safe to walk her home through the bear and wolf infested woods, he would stay the night and leave her home the next morning. One Monday morning, his father scolded him for spending whole Sundays away from home. He chided him for wanting to get married so young. Phineas remembered that when he was homesteading alone with his father in Michigan before his mother arrived, his father had urged him to marry so someone could keep house for them. But now his dad had changed his tune. One Monday after returning from Aunt Eliza's house, Phineas fell gravely ill. The doctor treated him with large doses of calomel, which I'm sure did him so much good, with its massive mercury content. His family and neighbors thought that he would die, but after a week and a half, he revived. Then he was taken with the ague, a sickness they called ague back then, for 9 months. Later, he had what he called the inflammatory rheumatism, which lasted 6 months or more. Sometime in there, while he was sick, he asked someone to go get Aunt Eliza to come and see him. Aunt Eliza felt funny about coming to the home of her boyfriend, or betrothed. I don't know when quite this was that she was asked to come visit him. But so she sent her twin sister, Anne Maria, instead to see him. When Phineas heard Anne Maria's voice in his house, he said he felt much disappointment and dissatisfaction. He told her to go home. He wanted to see Aunt Eliza. For it was her I wanted to see, he wrote. The next morning, Anne Maria left and Aunt Eliza arrived. I'm sure she was greeted much more pleasantly. He wrote about their wedding. It was the first day of January, 1840, I was married. By this time, all had agreed to the match and all went to the wedding and had a good time. He said our fathers and mothers were present. They stayed till 2 o'clock in the morning and ate and drank and made themselves merry. When they retired, they wished us all the happiness we desired. They were also married at the same time as her twin sister, Anne Maria. So it was a double wedding. He wrote, they wished us all the happiness we desired, but Darius, his brother, and his lady, who he intended at that time to marry, because Aunt Eliza did not invite her until the day before the wedding, thought that she did not use them very well. So after we were married and the dainties, or food, were passed around, they left and went through the back way. As they passed, they being by themselves, they filled their pockets and handkerchiefs full and packed it off without asking any odds, so that when we came to hand round the second time, we had but little or none to hand round. They must have taken at least half or 3/4 of a bushel of the best loaves of pound cake and pies and other things which were prepared for a second passing. But it all passed off, and I suppose they thought we never missed it, for nothing was said about it. That's what he wrote about their wedding. When they were introduced to the church in Michigan, they spent some time investigating it and then were baptized in 1845. They had 2 children at the time, Charlotte Aurelia, born in 1841, who later died in winter quarters when she was 6. Daniel Webster, born in 1843, who was always a sickly child, Phineas said, and died just shy of his 2nd birthday. And Harriet, they had 3 children. Harriet, born in 1845. This Harriet shows up in Aunt Eliza's Garden City diary that we published. Aunt Eliza agreed to leave their families and make the long trek west to Nauvoo to join the other LDS church members. However, when they got there, they found the saints had left Nauvoo and moved on to winter quarters. So they continued on and joined the refugee community there, awaiting a move farther west. In winter quarters, she gave birth to another daughter, Eliza Hall, but she died less than a year later. Both Charlotte and Eliza are buried in the Winter Quarters Cemetery, which is currently adjacent to the Winter Quarters Temple and across from a Winter Quarters Visitor Center. Their names are on this plaque of children that are buried there in winter quarters. After arriving in Utah, Phineas's journal mentions the Aunt Eliza's and her children. The family lived in the Great Salt Lake City, lived in Manti, Salt Lake again, Payson, and in the settlement they founded in Goshen. They also moved to Camp Floyd and then Garden City on the shores of Bear Lake near the Utah-Idaho border. Amanda Polly and Catherine joined their family as wives of Phineas in 1853, though Catherine divorced Phineas 3 or 4 years later. Aunt Eliza spent the rest of her life in Garden City, although her husband Phineas made one more move to Afton, Wyoming with his youngest wife, Johanna, whom he married in 1878, and their young family. Separating from Aunt Eliza and his second wife, Amanda Polly, and their families, and the family of his son Joseph, Catherine's son, Catherine had passed away by this time that the family was in Garden City. Details of their experience of polygamy are addressed in Janet Porter's book, Phineas Walcott Cook, A Legacy of Faith. But Phineas had been hounded by and arrested by the polygamy police, and he decided the move to Wyoming would help him avoid further persecution for polygamy. Phineas mentions earlier in his memoirs asking his wife, Eliza, to keep a daily diary for him. And we don't have this record that she kept, though I wonder if he used it to write his memoirs, which were written halfway through his adult life. After Eliza's death, two of Eliza's journals were given to Eliza's grandson, Alonzo Laker, or A.L. Cook, and one of them made its way to the church history library. This one contains a near daily record of her last 2 years of life. We don't know what happened to the other journal, so if anyone knows, please do tell. We're very interested in it. This last journal of Eliza's years from 1894 to 96 is bound in a lovely red journal and contains her lovely penmanship. A typed transcript was done by Roca Raymond, and we now have this published and available on Amazon. The text is enhanced with footnotes detailing the people, places, and some words she used that we may not be familiar with. It's also complete with some pictures, maps, and photos to help contextualize her years. We also updated spelling, punctuation, capitalization, and formatting of her entries to help with readability. I want to tell you about the Eliza that I found in this diary. She was close to her 71st birthday when the diary opens on the 1st of May, 1894. Her last entry is made on May 9th, 1896, and she died 9 days after that last entry. A final entry in the book is recorded by her daughter-in-law, Annie Vaderloss Cook. Eliza is living with Annie and her son, Hiram, Eliza's son, Hiram, who was married to Annie during this time. Hiram was her youngest son, her 16th child. He was 27 years old, and Annie was 24. Hiram and Annie had 4 children by this time, but 2 had died young. Their children living were Hiram Jr., or Jaime, as she calls him in the diary, who was 5 years old, and Lillian, or the baby, who was 1. The baby is introduced to us on page 2 of the diary. She says, Annie left the baby with me as she was asleep in her cradle. She's a very good child. A week later, the baby got tipped out of her little wagon on her head, but was not badly hurt. She cried pretty hard, but we hope she is not hurt. Lillian was often sick. Eliza records, the baby is very worrisome, and the baby is poorly today, and Annie does not feel much better, nor the baby. And Eliza cares for her, stays up with her, and worries about her condition. As I was working on the diary, I got to worrying about her too, as page after page, the baby was sick, got better, then sick again. After a few days of fretting over her while I was working on this, worrying what was around the corner as I turned each page, I finally realized I could put my fears to rest. I pulled up FamilySearch and looked for Lillian Eliza Cook. I found that she lived past childhood, so yay, I could rest comfortably. She lived until 1946, married in 1911, and had a daughter named Edna. So happy for baby Lillian. Back to Eliza. In 1894, she was living with Hiram, Annie, Jaime, and baby Lillian in Garden City, Utah. 6 of her 16 children were alive and lived in communities right around her, except her daughter Phoebe Allred, who lived with her family in Mexico. She exchanged letters with Phoebe frequently in the diary. Harriet, her oldest, had moved back to Garden City with her children to live near her mother when she was widowed. She was the postmistress of the Garden City post office at the time of the diary, which was sometimes located in Harriet's house. Eliza's sons, Alonzo, Henry, and William, lived nearby her in Swan Creek, Woodruff, and Garden City with their families and interacted with her frequently. Phineas's second wife, Amanda Polly, who was close to Eliza, lived nearby and also spent a great deal of time with her daughter, Mary Roselia, who lived in Hams Fork, Wyoming. Amanda was a nurse and a midwife and is detailed often in the diary, taking care of people in the community. As a side note, Amanda Polly also helped deliver a baby in the basement of the Salt Lake Temple during its dedication when a visiting expectant mother went into labor during the meeting. There are newspaper articles about it at the time. Amanda Polly's other living child, David Cook, ran a local store, and Eliza frequently mentions her line of credit with him. Many of the Cook grandchildren get mentioned in the diary. Interestingly, as of now, all of Eliza's grandchildren are, of course, dead, but the last one died as recently as 1988. Maybe that only seems recent to me. One thing I really loved about this diary is that Eliza was surrounded by the whole cast of her living family and Phineas's family members at the end of her life. All are mentioned in this 2-year diary. Joseph Walcott Cook, the son of Phineas's third wife, Catherine, had a large and prosperous ranch in Border, Idaho, and made frequent visits, and the other Cook children visited his ranch. Eliza mentions a visit from Joseph Meservey, who had been married to her daughter, Augusta Prescindia, until Augusta died. And she mentions seeing Joseph during the diary. Eliza is low on emotions or emotional detail in her journal, but I noticed a couple of trends that may have been her way of showing emotion in this very uptight Victorian era. At a few times in her journal, she goes into a great deal of particular detail about names, dates, and places, and I think that may have been her way of dwelling on a particularly emotional detail. For instance, when telling of Joseph Meservey's visit, she says, Joseph Meservey, my son-in-law from Wilfred Snake River, came for a short visit and business combined. He married my daughter, Augusta Prescindia, who was born at Winter Quarters, Omaha Nation, which is now called Florence, Nebraska, March 9, 1848. She died in St. Charles, Idaho, September 23, 1867, in childbirth, leaving a daughter named Anne Augusta, who was born at Fish Haven, March 9, 1866, and who died in Garden City of the measles, January 23, 1883. His wife and daughter both being buried at St. Charles, Idaho, he is calculating to go and see what condition their graves are in, and if need be, to repair the fence for the present, until he can bring gravestones or other things that seem necessary. We were all glad to see him. There's a lot of detail there, great genealogical detail, and I think maybe a clue to Eliza's emotions about the death of her daughter, both of her daughter's children, and Joseph being the only thread of connection to them. And we have a picture of these graves at the back of our book of Eliza's diary. Eliza also corresponds often with a Jeannie Ledyard, who lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She sends pictures of herself and her children to Jeannie and receives pictures and gifts of money from Jeannie. Eliza had left her parents and siblings behind in Michigan when she and Phineas moved west. We know that her parents eventually moved to California, and at one point, Eliza and Phineas visit them there. Her siblings stayed in Michigan, and many died before her. She had a twin sister named Anne Maria Heath, who died quite young. One of Anne Maria's children was Jeannie Ledyard, this niece who Eliza corresponds with in this diary. She has other nieces and nephews who are alive at this time, but this is the only one she seems to keep in touch with. And following her penchant for details with meaningful people, she records, received a letter from Jeannie Ledyard of Grand Rapids, Michigan, congratulating me on my birthday. I am 72 today. She is the daughter of my sister, Anne Maria Heath, married Washington Heath of Grand Rapids, Michigan. My guess is this twin sister meant a great deal to Eliza, and Jeannie was the remaining thread of connection to her. Eliza wrote a few other entries in great detail. One of them was her wedding anniversary. She actually mentions her anniversary twice in this diary, once in 1895 when she wrote, I was invited to my daughter Harriet's to dinner, it being the 55th anniversary of my marriage, and the 15th of my granddaughter B, or Eliza Beatrice, who was at her mother's on visit this winter. Marion Owens came over to help me. I walked by taking his arm and had a cane. Got along well, had dinner and a good visit, and just night my grandson Alonzo Randolph Teeples helping me home. The next year's anniversary, she actually mentions her husband, Phineas. He was living 75 miles away in Afton, Wyoming, with his youngest wife, Johanna, and their young children, and where they had gone to avoid the polygamy of police after they had previously forced Phineas to spend 6 months in jail for cohabitation. This mention of her anniversary in the diary is the only time she mentions Phineas by name in the diary. Other times she does refer to him, but calls him Mr. Cook or the children's father. Now, I don't think this is necessarily indicative of an estrangement of emotions or affection for him. I've noticed other 19th century writings in other diaries, spouses will call each other Mr. and Mrs. For instance, Wilfred Woodruff calls his beloved Phoebe Mrs. Woodruff throughout his diary. But this one time, Eliza does name him. January 4th, 1896, her last wedding anniversary, just months before she would die, is noted with unusual detail and reminiscence. She says, "I was alone all day. It is 56 years tonight, January 1st, 1840, since we were married, my twin sister and I. I was married to Phineas W. Cook of Richland, Kalamazoo County, Michigan. We were married at our father's house in Ross, Kalamazoo, Michigan. My twin sister, Anne Maria, was married at the same time to Washington Heath of Detroit, Michigan. She soon went to Detroit to live with him. We, my husband and I, went to live at Father Cook's. He, P.W. Cook, being the youngest son, they calculated to have us take care of them." Now, how about the other unemotional topics that Eliza covers in her diary? Most of her entries are very matter-of-fact. We get a lot of running accounts of the weather in Garden City each day. We get some expenses and money talk, and we get a lot of laundry. Her daughter-in-law, Annie, is always doing laundry. It must have been never-ending. If she's sick for a couple of days, she mentions that Annie brings in a hired girl to help with the laundry. 25-year-old Annie must have worked her fingers to the bone. As I was copy editing the final draft of this book with my daughter, Alison, we were working on it together. I would read the handwritten diary and she would check it against the typed manuscript. One weekend, Alison was busy, so I had my boys at home take her place and check some of the copy I was reading. When Alison returned, she said, "Oh no, I missed some. You did some without me. I didn't want to miss anything in the diary." I told her, "Well, I can catch you up pretty easily. Annie did laundry, then Annie did more laundry, and there you're caught up." Annie did a lot of laundry. Eliza never mentions eating meals or what they had to eat for meals. I found that interesting. She mentions Annie baking bread, getting milk from the cows, Hiram working in the garden, growing wheat and oats, selling potatoes, worrying the frost will kill the fruit, and twice she comments that they all have plenty to eat. But she never discusses eating itself or what she had for dinner. She mentions berries a dozen times, picking, stemming, preserving, raspberries, currants, and gooseberries. I understand Garden City is quite famous for its raspberries. But food is always mentioned in connection with work, never pleasure. And there's a lot of work going on in this community, as described in her diary. Lots of women's work, she notes. Babies being born, people getting sick, people dying. Eliza recounts a sad episode in the life of her son, William, who suffered, it appears, from mental health condition through much of his adult life. In September of 1894, she mentions, "Will is not well, but has a lot of work to do, and Hiram is helping him with it." 2 days later, she says, "I was at Will's this morning. His health is no better. He asked me if I would go to the temple with him. I told him I would if I could get ready, which I shall try to do." This would have been a trip to the Logan Temple, a day or two's journey away. She mentions him again on November 6, 1894. "William Cook very poorly again. I have been there part of the day, and I feel very bad about him. They are talking of going to Walcott's ranch, thinking it may do him good." A few days later, Will's family came home from Walcott's ranch. Sadie, Will's wife, had to see 2 things as Will had to stay a while, for they took him to Dr. Hoover, and he prescribed for him and told Will to keep him there a few weeks and see that he takes his medicines that he prescribed. Perhaps it might help him. Sadly, 19th century medicines rarely helped much of anything, let alone mental conditions. The next year in August, Eliza mentions Will is much worse, and Alonzo and Amy, Alonzo's wife, came up yesterday, and Alonzo went in the field with him to help him shock up his grain to see if his mind would be better. I think working so hard in the hot sun has seemed to affect his head almost to derangement. He has gone to stay at Alonzo's, hoping it may be such a change that he would be better. And again, he has been quite bad for a while, and Alonzo has had him down there some time because he is not quite in his right mind and was troubled about trying to get some money out of the store, and he has a share in it. He thinks he has a right. The next month, she would comment that he's doing better. Then in October, Will is not as well in his mind, but is working as well as he can. He has a notion the Lord has appointed him to be bishop here. And Will was very contrary. David is away, and Alonzo, and we do not know what to do about him. We want him to be taken care of and treated by a good physician that understands his case, for he is getting worse all the time. Then on October 31st, she writes, Will came here this morning about 3:30 a.m. to write letters to President Woodruff about temple work and wanted me to go to the temple to stay all winter with him to work for the dead if he could get me a free pass. Went home about 5 o'clock and came about 7 again to write. Wrote several letters and went back to breakfast as he said I could not persuade him to stay here to eat. And went off about 9 a.m. He got on his horseback bareback in shirt sleeves, an old ragged backed vest, an old straw hat, and looked very bad. She recounts that he took off and they asked around the neighboring communities to see which way he had gone, north to Swan Creek or south toward Meadowville. They found a mail carrier who told them that he saw Will beyond Meadowville, going south as hard as he could on his horse. We feel very bad, she wrote, about his going off, looking so bad without a coat or anything to eat and bareback. The next day they sent off a rescue party in David's carriage with bedding and Will's coat and some provisions for him. They waited and worried through the next day, asking every traveler if they had seen Will. That night it snowed 2 to 3 inches. The next day, she wrote, 3 p.m., Will rode up, his horse nearly ready to fall. Came the way he went without a coat, had not seen either of the boys, had come from Huntsville that day about 75 miles. Says he has been to Salt Lake and has seen President Woodruff, but would not say what he said to him. He feels bad about the boys going after him, says he wishes we would mind our business, for he could take care of himself. He sent his boy after horses to go to Star Valley, Wyoming with, but it is nearly night. We are not letting him go. He will have to be watched all the time. We think he will have to go to be treated. There are watchers with him all the time. Alonzo kept Will close with him after that for a few weeks. Then he went to Salt Lake and worked in the temple for a while, and on December 2nd, they checked him into the Provo Asylum with some letters of recommendation from his doctors. He wrote home they didn't think he would need to be in there long. He was still there when his mother, Eliza, passed away on May 17th. I don't know the rest of this episode, but I do understand excuse me, that he was in and out of the mental institution for much of his life. Mental illness was a very, very heavy burden to be borne in the 19th century and still today, with little to ease the suffering, especially back then. Eliza's diary does mention some community entertainment that takes place. There were picnics, dances, theater plays, Sunday school plays, school recitals, even a visiting entertainer who could play 10 instruments at once. She mentions household duties like papering walls, making clothing, going to the dentist to get teeth pulled or a new set of teeth made. She mentions current events like the Commonwealth Army's strike for higher pay for workers in the U.S., the Chinese-Japanese War, earthquakes around the world, and Utah's admittance as a state. She mentions this several times in the diary. On July 17th, 1895, she wrote that President Cleveland signed a bill for admitting Utah in the Union as a state. A few days earlier, she says, now after 46 years of residence in the Vales, we are admitted into the Union as a state. As President Cleveland signed the bill about midnight on the 17th, and our delegate, Rollins, has the point of the golden pen used on that occasion. The next week, on the 24th of July, she wrote, this day, 47 years ago, the pioneers entered the Vales of Utah, then a dreary desert inhabited by wild Indians and nothing but sagebrush. And you'll remember that she and Phineas entered that valley a year later. But the Lord has been with us as a people, and they have made the desert to blossom as the rose, and now we are a state. On August 1st, there were celebrations for this statehood move. She noted, celebrating Utah's statehood by firing of guns and raising of flags. A year and a half later, when Utah finally had a state constitution signed, sealed, and delivered, on Monday, January 6, 1896, she cheered, today we are celebrating Utah Day. The President, Grover Cleveland, signed the document making of Utah a state on Saturday, the 4th of January, 1896. We have been in the valleys 48 years before we were admitted into the Union. The pioneers arrived in Salt Lake Valley July 24th, 1847, and made all the roads and built all the bridges and founded a desert except sagebrush, and the whole country filled with wild Indians. Following the pioneers were a company of several hundred wagons with families who wintered here the following winter. That would have included her and Phineas. We had quite a celebration here for a small place, but I could not get out, cannot walk. But Annie went in the sleigh with her father's folks. Eliza loved the Relief Society program. She had been president of her ward Relief Society in Garden City since 1879, serving 15 years until her death. Amanda Polly was one of her counselors, and a woman named Helen Moore was another counselor. They held Relief Society meetings at the meeting house on Thursday afternoons at 2 p.m. It seems from her diary they weren't planned for every Thursday, but maybe the Thursdays that they held their fast meetings at 10 a.m. Then they would hold Relief Society at 2 p.m. And those seemed to be about every 2 weeks, except when the weather was bad. Someone would ring the bell at the meeting house, and it must have been loud enough to hear from far away. The very bell, by the way, is on display at the Garden City's existing chapel. The plaque under the bell reads, about 1896, that's the last year of Eliza's diary, this bell hung in a belfry on top of a little white church that stood on this very spot. It was rung 30 minutes before church and for fires and disasters. In 1926, the bell was broken during remodeling and put under the steps. The bell was found in 1977 when the church was torn down and restored in 1996. And there's a picture of this bell at the back of the book. Eliza writes that one Thursday the bell rang for fast meeting, but there were so few that came that they did not have a meeting. Then the Relief Society was to have a meeting at 2 p.m., but she says, waited for the bell to ring, but it did not ring. So I went to ring it, but someone in the morning disabled it and I could not ring it. Therefore, we did not have any meeting as the sisters did not come because the bell did not ring. They seemed quite dependent on that bell. In 1896, the Relief Society church-wide encouraged Stakes and Wards to hold a birthday celebration for the General Relief Society President Zina D. H. Young, and especially to hold a dinner to benefit the poor in their communities. This kind of birthday celebration for leaders was done frequently in pioneer times. Sometimes other pioneer diaries noted that pioneer women would meet to celebrate someone's birthday and do a temple session in their honor and do the birthday person's family in the temple that day. Anyway, Eliza and her Relief Society presidency set about planning this birthday celebration, and drama ensued. That must have been a pioneer time thing because our Relief Societies never have any drama in them at all, of course. It seems that her counselor, Sister Moore, did not want all the ladies to be invited. She had certain ones in mind that she wished to be excluded. Eliza doesn't write which ones or why. I really wish she had. I'm just curious, but it made enough stir that the bishop got involved. He agreed with Eliza that all the married ladies should be invited or the party not done at all. They had already planned not to invite the single ladies, which I don't really understand why, but I'm assuming that means the young women, since most were married by their 20s and there didn't seem to be single older women. So maybe they were just talking about not inviting the teenage girls. They cited dinner serving space as the reason to not invite the non-marrieds. Also, perhaps they meant to invite all, whether they were members of the Relief Society or not, because not all church members, ladies, would have joined the Relief Society back then. She doesn't spell all these things out. It probably went without being said back to her. But apparently Counselor Moore had gone ahead and passed on the word that some weren't welcome. Eliza wrote that she hoped all would be smoothed over when the official invitations went out inviting everyone married, that is. They planned the birthday celebration for January 31st, 1896, and in that day's entry, Eliza wrote out how the entire party went in great detail. This was her last Relief Society event, and she passed away 3 months after it. From the detail and the page space that she gives it, it seemed to mean a great deal to her. She writes, Bishop Calder's prayer in behalf of the Relief Societies opened the event. Brother Vaderlos took them down with his team. I do not feel very well, but went to meeting at 10 a.m. Brother Vaderlos took us with his team and brought us back to get dinner and get our picnic ready for our dinner at the meeting house. Our forenoon was occupied. Meeting called to order by President Ann E. Cook. Singing by the choir, prayer by John Allen, singing O My Father, Thou That Dwellest by choir and congregation, opening address by President Anne E. Cook, and a sketch of Sister Zina's life and labors and incidents of her recollections of her acquaintance with her for several years. Amy's original poem on Zina, song by Sister Saxton and daughters, reading in Eliza R. Snow's poems by Sarah E. Cook. Sarah T. Cook sang Just a Little Sunshine, Just a Little Rain. Rosalia W. McCann, original poem on Zina. Annie V. Cook, song on Secret Prayer. An essay by Mary Hall, recitation Daughters of Zion by Bertie Calder. Select reading by Miranda Linford, prayer by Conrad Vaderloss. We had an excellent time. I enjoyed myself very much. Sarah E. Cook was here to dinner, went back in the afternoon and had supper at 4. I got all cleared up about dark, and the brethren came after doing their chores and enjoyed themselves in different kinds of exercises. Program well rendered. Singing, recitations, games, singing. Sister Saxton dance and her 2 daughters assisted in the chorus. Bishop Calder was there, also his counselor, Alonzo Cook. We had a real good time, but stayed too late waiting for them to hitch up, and I came very near fainting away before Alonzo could get the end gate out, but got home all right, but I felt quite sick. It seemed the evening quite wiped her out, but she stayed to the bitter end. Now I want to end with snippets of testimony that Eliza gives us in this short diary. Near the beginning of her diary, her son Hiram, whom she lived with, was called on a mission. She records on October 19th, 1894, Hiram got a notification this afternoon that he was called by President Woodruff to fill a mission in the Australasian Islands on a mission. This is Australia and New Zealand, what they called it back then. She doesn't say if this call was a surprise or whether they were expecting it, but a month earlier she had recorded instructions given by some visiting church authorities. Brother Hiram Grant from Bountiful especially urged the young to inform themselves concerning the gospel and be enabled to explain it and prepare themselves to go on missions if called. We think of the young as teenagers, but in her time it could have meant any 20, 30, even 40-something, like 28-year-old Hiram Cook, married with 2 children. The next day, Eliza writes, we are talking about Hiram's intended mission, where and how to get his outfit, as the missionaries have to pay their way out and fit themselves out. And now her testimony shines through. But we are confident the Lord will open the way for his laborers in the vineyard. There are many needed, as there are millions who have never heard the sound of the everlasting gospel, and it has to be preached in all the world before the end shall come. And we know by the signs spoken of by all the holy prophets, it is not far off, and it is necessary to do all we can to prepare for it. Her diary is then replete with details of preparations to send Hiram on this mission, and it is not without sacrifice. A month later, she records, sent a letter to City Box B to answer George Reynolds of yesterday. Box B in Salt Lake City was the post office box for the church. If one got a letter from Box B, it could have been a mission call or another church correspondence. Hiram was writing back to Box B to ask details about what his mission outfitting would cost. And we have a copy of this very letter that he wrote at the back of the book, the actual letter, as well as a copy of his acceptance letter that he sent to President Woodruff. A few days later, Eliza reports, Hiram received a letter today from Post Office Box B, Salt Lake City, written by W.C. Spence, 183 immigration agent for the church, telling him what his fare would be from Salt Lake City to Sydney, Australia, or Auckland, New Zealand. $118.25, and she writes out in words, $118.25. It is going to be very hard to get. He can only raise $50 and what his clothing costs. Hiram experienced physical challenges prior to his mission. 6 months earlier, he had been trampled by a horse, and his collarbone and ribs broken, which caused him pain and trouble for quite some time. Now, as he prepares to go on his mission, his horse stumbled and fell on him, dislocating his thumb. Even through these trials, Eliza's testimony shines through. Was a miracle that he escaped with so little injury. He is trying to get ready to go on his mission, and the adversary, it seems, is trying to do everything possible to hinder the work of the Lord, and we feel to thank him for many mercies. November 28th, 1894, the time is fast approaching when Hiram has to leave, and oh, the loneliness. but he is called by the priesthood of the Lord to go and preach glad tidings of great joy to the South Sea Islanders, and we hope he may be blessed in this work. November 30th, all hands preparing to go to the farewell party. The baby in the afternoon was so much better we concluded to take her to the dance, as Annie and Hiram both wished to be together for the last time for 3 years. We all went, but the baby was very worrisome the first of the evening, but was very good the last part of the night. It is a free dance. We had an old-fashioned one. The boys donated Hiram about $20 to help him on his journey. All seemed to feel well towards Hiram and would be glad to help him more, if possible. December 5th, Hiram came with the mail about 3 o'clock. He borrowed $45. It would have been $100, but 5 is the interest. We have to keep the mail horses 5 months to pay for it. He got $50 for keeping them since July 1st to November 1st, so he has $100 of his own to start with. By being very saving, perhaps he may get along, but cannot get an overcoat. He so much needs also another satchel. He improvised a box, which he will use, but it is not safe for fear of being mashed to pieces. That gives us some idea of their poverty and also their thrift and industry and their faith. He finally leaves on December 7th, not 2 months since he received his call. Hiram started about 9 a.m. We feel as brave as possible, knowing it is for the gospel's sake and the will of the Lord. He is in the hands of our Heavenly Father, and he has gone to do his will. On February 18th, she records, received 2 letters from Hiram at Sydney, South Wales. He arrived there on the 8th of January, all well and had a prosperous journey, lacking 8 days of 1 month. When Hiram arrived at Sydney, there 2 elders at the wharf met him. They read the account of the news that Emil Vaderlas had put in that started from Vancouver on the Australian steamer Warramoo on the 16th of December. So they went to meet them when that steamer came into port. The elders' names are Brother Ridges and Armstrong. Thanks to her including these names, we were able to identify who these 2 elders were and have noted them in the footnotes of the book. The next day she records, we received another letter from Auckland, New Zealand. That shows what kind of mail lag there was across the ocean. Expects to get his appointment as soon as the president comes. He was 5 days going on a steamer from Sydney, New South Wales to New Zealand. Had a pleasant voyage, was not seasick. They slept on the deck of the steamer. He arrived about midnight. 2 brethren met them, brothers T.S. Browning and John Johnson. Again, thanks to her naming these missionaries, we not only identified them, but found a missionary journal that Elder John Johnson kept that's now in the Church History Library, in which he mentioned meeting Elder Cook at the docks of New Zealand, or actually missing them. The elder's ship was late, and Elder Johnson went to meet it, and it hadn't come yet. So Elder Johnson and Browning left, and Elder Cook and his companion arrived in the middle of the night and found nobody there waiting for them. Elder Johnson and Browning went down to the wharf in the morning and found the elders had arrived, but then left. Frustrated, Elder Johnson and Browning went to someone's house, found that Elder Cook's group had been there, and left. They finally found the elders and had a good time together until Elder Cook left for his permanent assignment in Canvastown, Marlborough, New Zealand. And there are pictures of these journal entries from Elder Johnson's journals, too, at the back of the book. And his journal is in the Church History Library. And Eliza continued to send letters to Hiram, pictures of the children, money, LDS-oriented magazines, and celluloid cuffs. He sent letters and little handmade gifts from some Maori women that he taught. She wrote, Hiram is enjoying his labors in the gospel. We're so very glad to get his letters from him, and may the Lord bless him all the day long and open his way before him, so he may be prospered all the day long. The last 2 months of her life, the Relief Society met at her house on Thursday mornings. I love this detail, as she never mentions meeting any other place but the meeting house with the bell. I like to think that her Relief Society sisters realized her end was near, and to show their love and respect to their president of 15 years, gathered at her home. Her next to last entry reads, Relief Society meeting here this afternoon, 15 present. We had a good meeting. Sister Allen, our secretary, read an excellent sermon delivered by Brother Franklin D. Richards, and all the sisters bore their testimony to the testimony goodness of God unto us. I am feeling very poorly, but thankful to be able to set up during meeting and enjoy it. The church, the gospel, and her family were obviously very important to Eliza, even if she wasn't a gushy, effusive writer. We can tell from the care she took to record these things how much they meant to her. At the end of her life, they were what she had and what she lived for. Her family members, some near and some far. Her ward members, especially her dear Relief Society sisters and friends. The gospel principles she embraced when she was young, she lived, held on to, relocated for, and sacrificed so much so that they could be preached near and far. I'm so thankful for Eliza and her lovely little diary so I can get a peek into a few of her 19th century days. I hope you will enjoy this book too for its history and the life and memories of our Eliza Howland Cook. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Hello again. This is Marcia Marshall here again to demonstrate to you our virtual family history service project. This is something you can do from home. So grab your laptop, computer, or smartphone, gather your family around you for a family night of family history tech fun. This is especially fun for those who enjoy screens so very much. In fact, if some of this technology seems a little unfamiliar to you, grab someone under 18 and I promise they can set it up for you. Our objective with this project is to add as many Cook people into the FamilySearch family tree. Here I have my FamilySearch opened up. This is my fan chart. But we're going to add to the FamilySearch family tree with people named Cook. So these Cooks are not necessarily related to us, but they might be. So you never know. We're just going to hit the whole Cook name and see how many we can add to the family tree. So this is a project that serves the family tree, which serves everybody in the world. So we have records that have been indexed, and we're going to attach these to people, Cook people. And sometimes we'll be creating a new person from the information that we found on the record, which is the best part because that's how the tree grows. When there's a new person that can be added to the tree, then that's a new person you can do ordinances for, and that's now found and put on the tree, and it's very exciting. We'll also just be adding records to some people who are already there on the tree. So we're going to use two programs for this service project that were created by BYU's Record Linking Lab. They have a Facebook page, which I'll show you here. Joe Price and his team at the Record Linking Lab have created this software. If you want to take a look at what he does, it's there. So we're going to use two programs. The first one works best on a PC or laptop, and the second program works best on a phone. So I'll show you the PC laptop program first. It is called Goldie May. And this Goldie May is a research software, but we're going to use the free version. I'll go down here to show you. Their free version that you can contribute to FamilySearch tree with volunteering. That's what we're going to do. So go to this page, goldiemay.com, and download this program onto your computer or laptop. Once it's downloaded, you will have this extension up here with a G in the corner. And so after you might want to pause this if you want to do that first, download the program, and then we'll proceed from there. So once you have it downloaded, you can click on the G, and this Goldie May will appear. We are going to, okay, I want to split screen this. So I want to put my tree on this side and the Goldie May extension on this side. Okay, we're going to do their volunteering here. Attaching records to the family tree. So you click on FamilySearch tree. Now on this page, there's some instructions about how this works, and what we're going to do is a project with all the surnames Cook. You can see that right now, loaded into this program are 3,155 records with people with the surname Cook. And there's a few more if you spell Cook different, or Cookie or Cooks. So we're going to focus, we're going to see how many we could do of this 3,100 list. So type in the name Cook there and start. We're going to do any record. We're going to get started. Goldie May will then, it will ask you to log into your FamilySearch first. It skipped that on mine because I'm already logged in. But if you're not logged in, it'll say, please log into your FamilySearch. So do that. Then it will open this up in your FamilySearch. It will open up the first record. You can look at this person and decide if he is the same person. These have already been joined, but they want to add this person to the family. So you might notice this source linker. You might have used this in FamilySearch before, but it is saying this Charles Cook and this Charles Albert Cook are the same person. They've already been attached. This Florence Cook and Florence Mary Snyder are the same person. They've already been attached. But this Daniel Cook, they wonder if it's the same as this David Casper Cook. In this case, because the names are different enough, I'm not going to attach these people because I think there may have been maybe another boy after it. If you'd like to click on these people or on the record, you can take a look more in depth if you want. Or if you don't want to, if you just think this is not a match, you can click skip. So I'm going to skip this record. If you're unsure of anything, just go ahead and click skip and it will move on. I believe it brings up that record to another volunteer who might want to look at it. So they're not lost forever. You're just skipping them. Now I'm going to look at this person. I think I will skip this one again because his dates are enough that he might be the same person, but perhaps not. So I want to get a record to show you that it looks like they're the right person. So I'm going to skip this again. So now we have Jessie N. Cook and J. N. Cook married to Emma Cook and Emma Vanover, but she would have been Cook when she was married, whose dates, they don't have dates here. So let me skip that again and get a record that looks good. Okay, here's a good record to show you. This family in this census record just has Margaret Fleeth with children Carrie M. Cook and Austin P. Cook, her husband, and their son, Austin Cook. This looks like they are the same people, that these are the same people as these. Their father may have been deceased or gone or not at home at the time of the record. So I think these are the same people. I want to match or combine this record with this. And here's how I can do that. I can press on the arrows individually and attach them like this. And attach. I'm going to do all the people on here. But in a minute, I'm going to show you a faster way to do this. And I believe that's the same son. The dates might be off a little because this is estimated from the census. Might have said he was a certain age and he hadn't had his birthday yet. So if they're within a year, I think they're good. And sometimes they just plain get their ages and dates wrong. So this one's off a little, but I think it's still the same family, so I'm combining them. Okay, that family is all combined. Now I can move on to the next. I'm still in the Cook surname here on Goldie May. So I will move on to the next family, and this family also looks like they are the same family. Instead of clicking the purple arrows this time, I'm just going to click this button, Attach Records, and look at that. It's going to do it all for me. So slick. Okay, and that's all there is to it. We're going to combine as many as we can, attach these records to these people in the tree, and sometimes it will pop up that somebody's a new person, and would you like to attach them? And so we'll be adding people to the family tree, and that's very exciting. Sometimes this record will pop up that it says, this is your cousin. I had that happen. Of course, it's not going to happen right now while I'm showing you, but it'll come down here under a record and say, hey, this is your, I had one the other day that said it's your 9th cousin because I'm logged into my FamilySearch family tree and this is connected with it. It will tell me, hey, this is your cousin. Oh, here we go. Mary Adele Mitchell is your 11th cousin, 3 times removed. So you might get some of your cousins in here, and that's exciting to see. If you want to, sometimes it'll pop up and say, this person might have a duplicate. And if you want to go into the records here in FamilySearch and try to figure out that duplicate, you can. Anytime you want to go into these people, research a little more, this is on your family tree, and that's up to you if you want to take that time. Okay, and so our project is to attach as many records as we think fit here, and we're trying to add people to the tree and beef up the tree for more family history work. I'm going to attach this record because it looks like Del Cook is Mary Adele Mitchell. They look like the same, and then I move on. And that's all there is to it. One last thing to show you here. If you scroll down on this Goldie May, it has a few tips for you here of things that you can take into account when you're comparing the two names. For instance, spellings variations are often fine. Watch for the mother who may not have her maiden name on this record. She might just have her married name, and that's fine too. Compare the dates. It's okay to be off by a year or two because people didn't always have the right dates on all of their census records, their right ages. And just some other tips there that you might want to take a look at. Now I will show you the second program that you can use to attach cook names to the tree. This program works best on your phone or mobile device. So first you're going to go to the Family Tree app, which is FamilySearch's mobile app. This is the symbol if you need to download the app. Go to your Family Tree app and make sure you are logged in with however you log in. I usually use my church account. So be sure you're logged in on your Family Tree app. Then you will go on your browser to geohints.rll.byu.edu. This is the Record Linking Labs mobile app, and it will have these three tabs. You will use these tabs one at a time, not all together. So we're going to use the surname tab to do cook names. But don't click on the surname and a location, just one or the other. So we're going to type in cook surname, and then when it comes up here, we'll click on that cook, and it will populate with pins that represent, in this case, a census record that has the name Cook in it. And our goal is to get all the pins, the green pins, done all over the world. This map can be extended to the whole world. So when you click on a pin that you would like to work on, it will bring up some information about that person, and you'll click on that box. This now will open in your Family Tree app. And this is the person of the pin that we clicked on, Helen Cook, and this is the person that Family Tree thinks is her match. This person's name is Helen Margaret Kennedy. Her birth date is the same, birthplace is the same, her last name is not the same, but if we scroll down, we see that she married a cook. So on this census record, her name is now Helen Cook. So I think this is a match. So I would go down here, and if there was any other information here from this census record that I wanted to add to the family tree, it would have a green arrow, and I would click on that, and it would scoot over to the family tree, and then I would click Yes, Attach. And now her record is added to her account, to her in Family Tree. Then it will ask me if I want to do her husband, which I could do as well. I want to show you an example of a person who is not found in Family Tree and how you can add them to the Family Tree. This person is Laura Cook. And if we scroll down, we would see that her husband was Philip Cook. So I may not know her maiden name, but her married name is Laura Cook. And they did not find a match here in FamilySearch. So it will ask me if I want to add a new person. When I click on that, it will open to this screen. And then I could see if there was a person that matched, if I perhaps knew her maiden name, or that it might match one of these names, or if it thought this person matched any of these. So I don't think it matches any of these. I would scroll through them all. And then if I don't find a match, click No Match. Then it will open up to this field where I can populate with her information. It will already be populated with her information. She's deceased because the birth date was so long ago. And then you can add this person to the tree. Then I would click this information to scoot it over to her now added person on the tree. And then I would click attach record. I forgot to show you that screen, but that's what you would do next. And that adds a person to the tree. That's exciting because now this person is available to be found, attached to other records, and ordinances could be done for her now that she's a new person on the tree. So once you're done with a person, you will go back. This opened in the Family Tree app. Now I want to go back to my browser that had the map with GeoHints, and then I can do another pin. And you can continue that way until you've completed all of the Cook pins on the map. Thank you for joining with us tonight. We enjoyed all the presentations and we're so happy you could join us. Please remember that these presentations will be available on our YouTube channel for viewing after this evening. Thank you and have a good night.